So one of the things I wanted to hit on was poverty and how it affects our community. I know we weren't necessarily talking about poverty in our messages, but we did hit on how I was saying, there's celebrities that, you know, are higher up. I mean, they help out a little bit, but they don't try to give too much. So I guess my next question would be, what can we do to solve some of the issues with poverty in our community?
Yeah. Like I said, I used to work with a organization that we did search and rescue for homeless veterans, not just downtown, but like off the freeway, in the camps, in the mountain areas, and there was a level of trust that we had to establish with them before they even opened up to talk to us. But as we started meeting veterans, I started listening, and we met a guy that was like he didn't want no help from the government because he had some bad experiences. And what I started to look at for myself was we have this conversation called objectification, where we objectify one another. And so, who is it for me to say that that person is living in poverty or because they're homeless? Like those labels disconnect us. That's a person. But even the objectification that we put on the label of celebrities, that's a celebrity. So they should, like, there's an expectation that comes with what they should do with their money. But we don't get a say so in that. That's their money. But it also deals with, again, you know, what's their relationship to money, right? Because now we have, as a human being experience, we have an experience in relationships to relationships. We have an experience in relationship to time. So what is your relationship to money? And for some people, money is scarce. And how they grew up around money and how their parents was about money. And then now that they got, money with their talents, they're like, hey, I'm not going back to that state. This is scarce. So I might not get any more. So then I'm gonna hold on to it. But yet we also have this natural selfless service that we want to do, right? We also have that natural give back. Like that's a human function too. That's a natural want to contribute. So you battle with, well, I want to give some, but I can't give it all because if I give it all, then I might not make another. I might not make any back. So it goes back to self-preservation. It goes back to, I mean, it could go back to hoarding, it could, but I believe that we have a relationship to money. All of us do. And until you start to figure out what your relationship to money is, because I said people who make $30,000 and have a great life because the money is their tool and it fits what they live. But we could say, I need $100,000 to live for my lifestyle. But yet we call the person who makes 30,000 poor, or, you know, we label people. So the label of the objectification about labeling one another disconnects the humanness. To me, it disconnects the humanity. And then I can talk to you as a homeless person. I could talk to you as somebody who's in poverty. And then you look at the government system. This is what I say today, and I say that, and I live by this conversation. They don't want to solve homelessness. The conversation is worth billions of just to talk about it is worth billions of dollars. So why would you want to solve something when you're making money off the conversation? It could easily be resolved with the amount of money that they've sent overseas and do all whatever that this United States does. We can't solve the homeless issue, but how much do they make just talking about it? And the organizations that make money just talking about it. So they want to solve that. So the best thing that we can do as people, again, is search your own heart and your own mind on how you view money, and then figure out how you want to contribute back to that conversation. But it's they're people. Poverty, we're labeling a class of people who might not consider themselves as and being in poverty.
No, that's true. And by poverty, I wasn't necessarily saying like 30K versus 100K.
Yeah, that was
Like
just my
I grew
numbers.
up,
That's just my numbers.
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying it really wasn't like an income level, because I mean, I know people who, don't make much, but they're living their best life.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe they have investments and they just take money out of it and they live
Mm-hmm.
their best. They're not making any money by working, but they're living, or they're someone's funding them, whatever the case may be, but by poverty, I mean, like I grew up in one of the roughest areas in Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
So there's poverty, there's poverties in other countries too. I mean, on the commercials and stuff, you see Jamaica as like this paradise. Like, no, I'm not from the paradise. I'm from the hood. Okay. I'm from where I used to be outside washing clothes for like hours. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? Like, I'm talking poverty in the more in the sense is not in being able to afford certain basic things in life.
mm,
Healthcare and just even food sometimes,
yeah.
Granted, in Jamaica, we have plants and we have the ackee tree and rice is cheap. So you just, you throw that together real quick. But, I had to eat bread and butter sometimes, like that's what I mean by poverty, not necessarily state of, where you are income wise, but just being able to
But is that is
afford
that is
basic
that
necessities.
is that poverty or is that the culture too, as a part of that?
You can't say it's the culture because there's nicer middle class, upper class Jamaicans that, I didn't even know those exist until I got older because I
Oh,
grew up in the hood. So I thought this was normal. I
everybody,
thought
yeah.
I thought, oh yeah, like, how we're living is normal. And then when I grew up and I saw, oh, Jamaica has this, Jamaica has that, I was like, what? Like, where was I living? Like, but as a kid, I knew nothing. And then when I grew up, I'm like, yo, we really were poor. Like,
Mm.
and I know you say, people view poor, and maybe I do because how I grew up, but like to me, that was poor
Mhm.
versus like just seeing how other people like they could afford basic things. I mean, there were times where, it couldn't even get lunch money. So it's just that's what I mean by that. Not necessarily like you're homeless per se, just like not being able to afford the basic necessities because jobs are scarce. It's
Yeah.
it's it's not really like here where I feel like here there's a lot more opportunities for jobs, whereas back then there like it wasn't that way for people. So it was just like, to me, that was real poverty.
So you made me think about like I'm actually in a seminar right now with my classes about money, right? And so I started working at 16. But I remember my cousin would pay me $1 to read books. So I think I was like kindergarten. So I was making money reading books. But when you said that about the poverty from that context, um, it made me think about when I was in school and asking my parents for lunch money, right? And they would give me like $2 a day. I'd be like, dude, $2 a day ain't gonna do nothing, man. By the time I play a couple of video games and eat breakfast and lunch, the money's gone. And so I felt like we were poor. So then I wanted to get my own job, right? And so that forced me to go get a job at 16 because I wanted my own money because I wanted these shoes and my mom wouldn't buy me those shoes or these clothes. So I can relate to you in that sense of, the experience of it, but were we poor? I think my mom had food stamps. I can remember going to the store and her paying with food stamps, but I knew that that was embarrassing more than anything. I don't know if I considered it being poor, but I knew how people talked about people who got food stamps and lunch tickets because he didn't have money. So that was kind of my version of that. And it was a very emotional, very, very emotional charge because as a child, I didn't understand at the time what was going on. So I could hear how as a child growing up in that environment, and then you see others who have stuff that you don't have, could that be the kind of poverty stuff that you're talking about, or is it deeper than that?
No, because in Jamaica we don't have foods. We didn't have food stamps. Okay. You better go pick a ackee from the tree and go buy some flour, make some dumplings and throw it together. Like we did not have no food stamps.
So
I
no,
don't
no
know if they have
comparison.
it now, but back then, like no, like you had to hustle to make some money. And some people had hard times getting jobs. There's some people that got out of it. My
Hmm.
mom, she used to travel overseas, buy and sell clothes until she eventually migrated to the States. She left me and my other siblings there so she can get a better life.
Hmm.
We actually lived more privileged than other ghetto kids because my mother was in the States sending back money, but there
Right.
still were rough times. There still were times where it's like you can't afford certain things. And then, just other people around us, they didn't have the same luxuries. So to me, it's just like,
But do we get a real say in that though? I guess that's my question is how much of a say do we get in that? I don't
well, you have a valid point there. It's like we can't say
because it's
how bad
emotional.
people have it,
It's an
but when you
emotional.
talk to them, they feel like, yeah, I wish I had more. Like,
Well, yeah, that's normal. I mean, I wish I had more, but
I
there's
wish I could get to a more stable place. Let me put it that way. It's not even about being rich. It's more so about being in a more stable place
yeah,
where
the basic
okay, if I
necessities.
get sick, I can afford or my healthcare will cover me. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like, but being scared to go to the doctor because you don't have insurance or like you don't have the money to pay the doctor, to me
But see, I have friends who have medical insurance and are scared to go to the doctor because they're not going to get taken care of by the doctor. They feel.
that's true too. But yeah, people exist like that. But not specifically speaking of those. I'm specifically speaking of the ones, I guess, because to America is very different from Jamaica too. It's
Yeah.
like, like the like public type clinics you guys have here versus the ones in Jamaica. It's like
Too
complete
different. Yeah.
difference. You get
Yeah.
way more help here. So it's probably harder to understand. Because there was a point where I was kind of like thinking like, okay, why can't these people do better? And
Right.
why? But it's like, it's harder there. It's harder and rougher to do better. It's not as simple as, oh, I can't find a job, so let me go Uber real quick. It's not like that
Yeah.
there. It's not so easy so a lot of people turn to crime and stuff like
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
But I can't say that, I know you say, who am I to say that they're in poverty, but they'll tell you they're in poverty. So those are the type of people I'm talking. I'm not talking about the ones who, they're poor, but they're happy about it.
Yeah,
Or
no,
not, let me
and
not say
it's
poor, but
difficult.
they're not where they want to be, but they're cool with it. I'm not talking about those.
Could that be a conversation that just has no answer? And we just find ways to contribute to them with what they need versus what we think that they need? Wouldn't that be something like, hey, well, what do you need? Hey, well, we need a washer and dryer because I don't want to wash clothes outside no more. But do they have the ability to have electrical stuff set up? Like then you have to. So is it more of, like I said, a lot of it could just, there's stuff in life that there's just no answer to. We can figure out how to improve it or make it better, but at the same time, some stuff that we just, that's stuff that's that part of the, I don't know, I don't want to say it that way either, but each environment has its different concerns and worries. And like I said, I can relate to you in the concerns and the worries because I have people who live with sickle cell, my friends, and they have health care, they have, but they're like, I don't want to go to the doctor because I don't want to die at the ER, right? But
Mhm.
then they challenge their body because now you're going to challenge that illness at home and you don't know what's going on. So they don't want to go to the doctor because they treat me like a drug seeker. So I think each environment has their thing that they deal with and a lack of. But is there a true answer to that? I don't know. What would it take for someone like your mom to like, you know what? I got the courage to get out of here. Like that, like I got the confidence that I could go, I don't have to live in this kind of environment anymore. Like some people find that that confidence and that courage to move and not be a, how we say, a product of our environment. I know some people just find it and some people never find it. And then maybe because you know that and you had your experience, that could be something in life that if that mattered to you, then maybe there's something that you could create to go back and figure out, hey, I didn't have this when I was growing up. Does anybody out here like care about this kind of stuff? Like when I was growing up, and you might have people like, nah, we ain't worried about no washer. We like being out here washing clothes like this. Some people, you know, their environment teaches them. I'm just saying, who really knows unless you have a conversation with that person, like with that person. Say, hey, well, how's it for you as a child living here in Jamaica with doing this and this? And then here, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm struggling. Well, what's your struggle? And then find out what I believe that's in communication. Even here in the United States, we don't even have those kind of conversations. I got struggles. I got concerns. Oh, me too. And then we just walk away with them. We don't say, hey, well, what's your struggle? Oh, I got financial struggles. Oh, okay, I got relationship struggles. I got this struggle. But I don't want to be judged by it. So I think our conversation is a little bit different because we know what our struggle is, but sometimes we don't even want to voice it because how you gonna feel about me if I tell you? You might not be my friend because I only make 50,000. Like you're not gonna be my friend because I drive this kind of car. So it's a tough that's a tough question to take on because there's so many different dynamics to it, which is why I said when we deal with the homeless here, I learned that we had to listen to that each person individually, because if you come, and I think that's where the government system, they mess up because they create this one blanket program, and if you're a circle and this is made for squares, then you don't fit in there. So then you don't get no help because this is for squares and you're a circle. But if you get to each individual and say, what do you need? What do you need? Everybody's gonna have a different need, similar but different, because that need means something different to them. And I believe that stuff has to be talked about before you try to change someone's mindset or even help, because you could be doing more damage than helping too. So that's a tough one. You got me on that last one because that's a tough one to take on.
It is, and even though it is a tough one to perhaps talk about, it's like I've always been of the mindset, I feel like when you said earlier, like the government, they could solve all the homeless problem. They're just choosing not to. That's how I feel about most problems in
Yeah.
society. Like I feel like they could solve it, but then everybody would be on equal playing field, and maybe that billionaire that doesn't have to work, now they got to go work, and now their kids got to go work, and they don't want that. So so it's like, will they help to an extent to make them look like they're helping, but they're not ever, in my opinion, really helping.
The if I'm gonna say this, and then this will be my last political statement. But look at how the United States was built off. It was built off low income, cheap labor. Like that's that's when I said the spirit behind why this runs the way it does. They get rich off of poor. Look what they do with inflation, where our people are already struggling, and then you raise the price of the food, you raise the price of gas, like you do that. But it's that level of working class that suffers the most. but that's where they make it. And then they want to give you a stimulus check for the inflation. I'm like, for real? Like, oh, you want to give you a stimulus check? That's the stimulus checks that you gave us before is was the cause of your inflation. Somebody got to pay that money back. It wasn't free money. But that's why I say those when we talk about the system, those are the we call them the Englishmen, the people who run the country, who run those systems, that those systems benefit them, not the benefit the people. And then look, when the cheap labor, even with now we're arguing of they're fighting about wages increase. Like again, it's all about the cheap labor. And if they're not, they're gonna go, so they move businesses to other parts of the world for cheap labor. Like that's what they did here. They built this country, cheap labor. Now we want to be included. We got aspirations. We want to make money too. Oh no, no, no. We're gonna take this job over to Mexico. We're gonna take this job over here where we can get it done for cheaper. So we can either be stuck in that, or we could figure out, like, figure our mindset around that and figure out, okay, what's my part in this? What's my part is for myself and for my family, so that we don't, we can think about these systems than to be at the effect of the system. And I believe that we can have conversations to teach people how to think about the systems, but not what to think, because you have to discover yourself up against that system. Free yourself from the conversation of the world, and then figure out, okay, how do I have this benefit myself? What do I need to become? Who I need to have a level of confidence to go up against this system, so that I can have something for my family, not be at the effects of the system. And a lot of times I think we're just at the effect of the government system. And then that's draining by itself, because now we're blaming the system, but then I'm not doing anything, or I don't have the confidence to go get my own job, as we talked about earlier, to figure out what's my passion. Then I'm not going to worry about the government system. I'm going to figure out what I care about and maybe go do that as a job. And then now I'm making money, or at least I'm being fulfilled.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how much money I make. It's the fulfillment in life that I believe is, at the end of the day, we want.
No, yeah, no, that's so true. And I'm happy you hit on that last part, because I was gonna ask, like, do we just sit back and let the system do its thing and
No.
take away all the jobs and then we have nothing,
No.
but I'm happy you hit on that last part, like getting your confidence on how to combat the system. Because I think about these things a lot. Like my mind is just like always constantly thinking about, okay, how do we solve this? How do we solve that? I mean, obviously, I do want to go back to where I'm from in Jamaica. And I know sometimes people say, don't go back, they'll just do this or they'll do that. But I'm just like, if they do it, they do it. We all
Right,
gonna die anyway.
exactly.
So it is what it is. Like,
But that's
but
that
at least I know I've
self-preservation.
tried my
Yeah.
part, and I haven't gotten there yet to doing it, but it's definitely something that is in the works.
Mhm.
And then I want to, solve even problems here as well. But we have to have the conversations to see how do we go about solving. Because if you're just like, oh, I'm gonna solve this problem, and you're just like winging it, nothing really gets done. You're
Mm-mm.
just winging it.
No.
But this was a great conversation. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to hit on.
No, I think I pointed everything back to what I see. A lot of the stuff that we deal with in our society, the social ills, um, is that relationship, is that family. The family creates the community creates a society, and the society creates a nation. And so if you drill down to at its core, it's that relationship between that man and that woman. And then it's a relationship between that man and himself first. Because how I treat myself is how I'm going to treat you. And that's where the Bible talks about love your neighbor with the same measure that you love yourself. Well, then if I don't love myself halfway, I can only love you halfway. And so
No,
you
that's
have to
true.
figure out for yourself, and like I said, a lot of us deal with wounds, and we don't
Mhm.
and we don't admit it. And that's why therapy is so great. Therapy for me I took cognitive behavior classes. And I tell you, when I put my life when I was honest with myself, because I was willing to do the work and I was honest with myself and I put my life in that class, I saw that my thoughts were so exaggerated. I could, I used to say I don't trust women because I didn't trust my mom. That's where it came from. But my mom represented all women. So when I grew up and then all the episodes and the evidence that I collected, oh yeah, I definitely don't trust women because she's gonna leave me. Look at this one left me. Look at this one. Even if I sabotage it, oh she still left. See, I knew you was gonna leave, but I sabotaged the relationship. So when I was able to do that and put that in that mental health course, I could no longer say I don't trust women because I could see where I can't use words like all or none. Like there are certain words that we use to describe life that's not exactly how it's described, especially if how I describe it and you describe it differently because it means something different to you. So we're pointing to the same thing with two different descriptions versus saying then what's so about that conversation. And I believe that when I did that work, I challenged my thoughts and I realized that hey, some of the stuff that I even talk is exaggerated to the point where it's emotionally draining, like it's exaggerated, and it just wasn't true. So maybe I trust women 65%. At least now I can give it some kind of figure versus I don't trust women at all because I do. But then I had to look at what that percentage that I don't trust because it's still reflecting back to me because I'm guarded. I don't want to be controlled by anybody. I don't want to be, and I don't want, and I'm avoiding disappointment. At the end of the day, in relationships, I don't want to be disappointed. So then, how do you want to be in a relationship, but you don't want to be disappointed? So then, there's no risk. And I think that happens a lot of times in our relationships, like you said, with people we talked about with children. People that I don't want, I'm avoiding being disappointed again, at all cost. But yet, you want to be in a relationship where we have that sense of belonging or that connectedness. So it doesn't even go together because I truly in my heart, I don't want to be disappointed. So
No,
then
yeah.
I'm not going to be all in. I'm not going to be all in with you because they say 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Because I'm avoiding what I'm avoiding in life. And it's costing me relationships. It's costing me love. It's costing me well-being. It's costing me joy. It costs us something when you pretend and you don't tell the truth about how you feel about things, or at least express them. It costs. It costs. And
No,
I
that's so
and
true.
I don't believe our society is not really present to the cost of our behavior.
I think as people grow older and such, they start realizing it though.
But why we
And
gotta
so
wait till we get old? That's what I'm saying.
it
We don't have to
that's
wait
why
till
we
we get
gotta teach it
old.
young. It has to be
Yes.
taught young,
Yes.
so people can live. I've come across a lot of people who paid that price. And
Yes.
by the
No.
time they're like old, and some of them try to like instill better into the next generation, and at that point sometimes that's all you can do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that's why I say there's conversations that we can have, truly have, with our younger generation, so we can start making those corrections now, because they're the next politicians, they're the next governors, they're the next doctors and mayors and whatever. And if we don't interrupt that cycle with some knowledge and some communication skills and some again self love and self worth early, so when they start to experience life, they can pull from that and not pull from the womb,
True.
because we pull from the wombs and we're like, that's what I'm gonna do. That's how I survived that last womb when I got disappointed. That's how I survived. And then we wonder why life keeps looking the same way, because we keep doing the same thing to survive those moments. So it's always gonna be your fault because I did what I did and she didn't do what she did, so it's her fault. And now we just blame each other.
That's so true. And I'm so happy we had this conversation, because
Thank
I
you.
feel like whenever I have these sorts of conversations, I always come out with even a better perspective on certain things. And like you talking about the poverty stuff and how I view poverty, and I'm just like, you know what, maybe you are right. Maybe I do need to revisit that. Like, so I always love having these conversations because I come out of it I feel like even better.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, if they have these conversations, they can be better. They can be better not just for themselves, but their family and the society at whole.
Yeah.
So I really do appreciate you coming on
No
and
problem.
sharing
Thank
your
you.
perspective. It definitely has me thinking a lot. I'm probably gonna rewatch this like, you know,
Cool deal.
because a lot was said, and I think it's important to continuously have these talks until, well, we're probably never gonna get to perfect place. So
Yeah.
it's just gonna be something you have to continually do until you know, people start opening up more and having these conversations more and just getting better in general. So
And
thank you
that's
so
that's the
much.
only reason why I do my talk show these days. And I take on in different, contexts, military, sports, athletes, because we all, there's a sense of relatedness, right? And if you have a conversation and you're listening to that person as your guest, you can hear where they're coming from. You can hear the words, and now you can speak to that and not the upset. You can speak to that and, oh, why'd you say it like that? Why'd your voice go high when oh yeah, then what is that, right? And then so now they get to open up, and then it's a different experience when you have a conversation of versus debating. We could debate all
Mhm.
day long, and I want to be right about it, but nah, that's for other superficial stuff.
No, that's true. That's true. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming
Thank
on
you.
my channel.
Yeah.
Let the people know where they can find you at again. And yeah.
Yeah, for Farron Dozier, FarronDozier. It's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You'll find all of it, and all the conversations that I'm up to. Just Google that or search that.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.